Elias Voss first heard the runes in Bergen's lesser-known basement floor, the one the regulars called Decryptor. He was there to consult on a new surround system, 8 subwoofers sunk into centuries-old masonry, but the DJ, a pale woman who performed under the name Valkyr, waved him away from the rack of amps. "Listen, not look," she mouthed. Elias slipped on a pair of reference cans and almost flinched. Beneath the kick and clap, low enough to hide under the club's constant tinnitus, another rhythm pulsed. It was all consonants. Jagged, angular shapes one felt instead of heard, like carved runes rattling inside the sternum. He lifted the phones off his ears. The room vibrated in sympathetic tension, as though someone had tightened a huge steel spring around the crowd's collective lungs. He had spent a decade mastering Techno's secret languages, micro-timed ghost notes, the psychoacoustic illusions that made a sine wave feel like velvet or razor wire, the precise delay taps that could bend perception of BPM. But this pattern was different. It locked the dancers into a march. Shoulders squared, chins jutted. Feet landed on the concrete floor, not in hedonistic abandon, but in rigid unison. Ilias, forever the observer, clicked his decibel meter. The readout was reasonable. His gut still told him something was badly off. After soundcheck, Valkyr paid him in cash and a single USB stick. "Analyze that," she said, eyes almost luminous in the emergency exit glow. "Tell me what you find." Ilias meant to load the files the moment he got home, but a crossfade of exhaustion and curiosity led him instead to Hauptbahnhof's late-night currywurst stand. A drizzle soaked the station's glass roof in sheaths of neon. He watched strangers past, each face an island of worry or anticipation, and considered what Berlin had done with its ghosts. The wall had fallen. The scars remained. Techno had colonized those gaps, turning disused power plants and air raid shelters into cathedrals of bass. Maybe, he thought, we let the past dance so it can't march. At 2 a.m., he finally opened the project file in his little Prenzlauer Berg studio. Spectral analysis showed frequency spikes that spelled shapes when plotted over time. He rotated the 3D view and they're unmistakable. Algais. The protection rune, followed by Tiwaz, the warrior, a string of ancient Germanic sigils pulsing at precisely 128 beats per minute. Whoever encoded them understood both linguistics and psychoacoustics. He recalled rumors of rune core sets, fringe acts who claimed the old symbols could be vibrated, not chanted back into potency. He'd dismissed those stories as marketing shtick. Scrolling deeper, he froze. Every 16 measures, the waveform flattened into an unmistakable cross with flared arms. The Iron Cross, emblem of Prussian militarism and, in darker iterations, Nazi valorization. Its appearance wasn't visual coincidence. The amplitude peaks were too deliberate. Elias felt a chill he'd last experienced watching archival footage of parades at Nuremberg. Thousands of boots striking the ground in locked coercion. Was Valkyr resurrecting that spirit, literally? He emailed 2 colleagues for second opinions. Ingrid, a crypto-linguist he dated briefly, and Marco, a producer notorious for convolution magic. Then he tried sleep and failed. Around dawn, Marco texted, "Bro, that's not audio, that's necromancy." The next night, Elias took an off-book job at Nebelwerk, a shuttered steel foundry turned members-only techno sanctum. Valkyr and another DJ, Nix, were co-headlining. He told the promoter he needed to do a routine safety check on the freshly installed laser grid. Berlin's fire code, he said, demanded it. In reality, he wanted to watch the patch cables backstage. What he found made his heart thud louder than the subs. A leather-bound grimoire lay open on a folding table beside a modular synth. Hand-inked runes filled the margins like black ivy. Beside it sat a hand-held 3D printer, the nozzle still glistening with resin. Small iron chips the size of headphone jacks had been printed in the shape of the Iron Cross one for each output channel. Elias lifted one to the light, copper coil embedded within, tiny enough to hide inside a speak-on connector. Magnetic transduction, he guessed. A way to layer infrasound modulation after the final D/A stage. He pocketed the chip. Suddenly the floodlights cut, plunging the backstage in gloom. Nick stepped in, face half-painted with runic circuitry. "You shouldn't be here," she said, voice pitched low. "You're breathing the wrong future." Elias tried charm. "Fire inspection. If the city shuts you down, you'll lose more than a vibe." Nick smiled, predatory. "By dawn, the city will be ours, Inspector." She pulled a velvet rope to reveal a roll-up banner. R3 Isotonic, Unification Rave, Brandenburg Gate, 3.10 o'clock, Dag der Deutschen Einheit 2 nights away. Illegal public event at Berlin's most symbolic monument. The Iron Cross rune shimmered between the words. He'd left before security could ask questions, adrenaline making the spree's night air taste metallic tonic. The pun was obnoxious, but the implication crystal. They meant to leverage National Unification Day to wake something old and martial. Brandenburg Gate, once a Prussian triumphal arch, then part of the wall's death strip, was the perfect ritual axis, and techno crowds loved an illegal rave, especially if it promised rebellion. The city would swarm. Elias needed allies. Ingrid met him at Humboldt University's deserted library stacks. Her bleached buzz cut and tweed blazer looked incongruous among dusty volumes of Germanic philology. She read Valkyria's waveform printout under a banker's lamp, lips pursed. "These aren't just runes," she murmured. "They follow a Guldum meter, Old Norse incantation pattern. See the alliteration pairs? They're meant to be chanted in call and responsive, or in this case, side-chained. Side-chained to what? Pulse width of sub-30 Hz sine waves. She traced Tiwaz with a pen. War rune keyed to the root chakra. If you pulse that long enough at high SPL, you can induce collective fight or flight. Combined with historic site resonance, you could summon a thought form. "A tulpa of the Iron Cross," Elias concluded. Ingrid nodded. "An egregore fed by centuries of militaristic fervor, not a ghost. More a mimetic apex predator." Marco joined via laptop feed from his Kreuzberg studio, cigarette smoke curling around the webcam. "I ran the stems through a coherence plot," he said. "At 013 in the arrangement, there's a phase-locked burst every measure that maps perfectly to the shape of Brandenburg Gate's columns. Spatial audio, man. They're going to use the gate itself as a resonator." Elias felt the pieces click. Printed iron chips as inductors, runic carrier waves encoded in kicks, physical monument as acoustic amplifier, and thousands of dancers as biological batteries. Nationalistic fervor disguised as underground hedonism. If they succeeded, Berlin might awake longing for banners and plunder, and democracy's fragile focus could fissure. "We have 48 hours, Ingrid said. "Let's crash the party," Marco offered. "Flip the phase." Elias exhaled. "We need gear permits we don't have, and a way to hijack their PA without tipping them off." "Lucky for us," Ingrid smirked. "I'm dating a city logistics officer." Preparations blurred. Ingrid forged a construction permit citing urgent maintenance of an underground fiber vault adjacent to Pariserplatz. That got them vehicle access to the gate's restricted perimeter. Marco hacked a firmware update for the particular model of PA processor Valkyria favored. If they could slip a USB into its service port, they could invert the rune sequences, converting their war incantation into a banishing hymn. Elias rewired a mobile generator trailer, adding a secret patch bay that routed left channel into an external convolution reverb he'd designed. Its impulse response was sampled not from a cathedral, but from the inside of the Holocaust Memorial's concrete stele, a sonic architecture of sorrow and remembrance. He hoped grief could drown rage. On the eve of Unification Day, Berlin hummed with anticipation. Police focused on official fireworks at Tiergarten. No one wanted to anticipate trouble at the gate itself. Techno fans followed geotagged breadcrumbs on dark social channels. R3, Ichtoniglyv, Gate Grap. The city's rebellious youth streamed in, clad in black, some in mock Wehrmacht greatcoats they thought were ironic. Elias's van pulled up to the utility hatch near Hotel Adlon. Uniformed guards glanced at Ingrid's forged paperwork and waved them through. Beyond the gate's pillars sprawled a clandestine fortress of trusses, LED screens and line-oared towers. Valkyr and Nix commanded the stage, cloaks billowing, their laptops embossed with bind rooms. The base rumbled like a giant slamming iron doors underground. Elias surveyed the crowd, thousands already, many with eyes half closed, breathing in synchrony. The runes were doing their work. He had one shot at the processor rack. Ingrid engaged a bored tech with a fake story about earthing faults. Marco, disguised as a roadie, palmed the firmware drive. Ilias monitored Valkyr's build-up. 124 BPM, 126, 128. At 130, she would unleash the Iron Cross motif. The time-slide fireworks overhead would mask the critical subharmonic surge. A guard dog snarled. Someone had spotted the unauthorized van feed. Elias heard rushed footsteps. Now, he muttered. Marco ducked behind the stage skirts, popped the rack's side panel, and slid in the USB. 10 eternal seconds passed. LEDs flickered red, then green. The processor rebooted. Elias watched the spectrum analyzer on his tablet flip polarity. The runes inverted, the peaks now troughs. But Valkyr, sensing discord, slammed her palm on a sampler pad. A siren burst forth. She grabbed the mic. "Berlin," her voice boomed, half ecstatic, half wrath. "They who fear the future cower among you. Cast them out." Crowd energy twisted. Dancers shoved, searching for enemies. The egregore was awake enough to smell sabotage. Elias patched his secret generator into a spare aux send and triggered the Holocaust Memorial impulse response. A cavern of cold stone unfurled through the mix, a sonic sepulchre. He overlaid a heartbeat kick at 60 BPM, human tempo, grounding. Ingrid whispered Old Norse counter runes into a shotgun mic. Marco processed them with granular delay, scattering protective syllables like stardust. The air thickened as if two climates collided. Over the PA, the Iron Cross motif re-emerged, now warring with Elias's lamentation patch. The gate's sandstone vibrated. He swore he saw dust fall from the quadriga's bronze hooves. Between pillar shadows, an outline gathered. A vast figure of overlapping helmets and medals, chest crossed by a spectral medallion. Its eyes gleamed battlefield flares. Even inverted, the rune energy still coursed. They'd only rerouted, not disabled it. The thought form wanted a body, and thousands of adrenalized ravers offered one. Elias cranked the convolution send, saturating the mix with echoes of muted sobs. The figure faltered, shapes of memory intruding, deportation trains, white crosses at Halby, firestorms over Dresden. Empires didn't rise without graves. The crowd's posture sagged, fists unclenching as grief supplanted frenzy. Valkyr screamed, tearing off her headphones. She raised her hands, palms inked with Soilo, the sun rune amplifier of will. Stark white light erupted from moving head fixtures, scything the night. She began a rapid-fire chant, looping herself through a vocoder. Stahl, Blut, Ere, Eins. Each word hit like a hammer, rearming the dancer's spines. The spectral figure straightened, medals chiming. Elias felt despair crawl up his throat. He needed a finale loud enough to shatter symbolism itself. He remembered the iron chip in his pocket, the mini-inductor, an idea crazy as anything, yet tonight he sprinted to the stage's center substack, forced a speak-on loose, and jammed the chip onto the connector's pin. It would oversaturate the coil, injecting chaotic noise into the amp's feedback network. He dived aside as sparks flew. A shriek of pure white noise ripped through the system. 9K to 20K, a banshee wail that cut flesh from consciousness. The LED wall glitched, runes flickering into static. Silence followed. True, raw, heart-wringing silence, broken only by Berlin's distant fireworks. The spectral iron cross teetered, edges fraying like old film stock. Elias, ears bleeding, took the wireless mic. "Remember," he croaked in German, voice amplified through emergency speakers. "Remember everything." He triggered one last file, a simple field recording of church bells from all over Berlin, mixed into a slow, panoramic sweep. Gethsemane, Kreuzkirche, Kaiser Wilhelm, each tolling not in harmony but in messy, overlapping humanity. Bells for wedding days, bells for air raid warnings, bells for walls 4. The convolution reverb turned them into a wash of unresolved histories. The crowd wept. The figure dissolved into motes that drifted above the gate, vanishing as morning's first pastel hinted against clouds. Police stormed the plaza moments later, too late to witness anything supernatural. They arrested a handful of organizers. Valkyr escaped into the Tiergarten shadows, but most ravers wandered away dazed, hugging strangers, tears tracing eyeliner streaks. There had been an event, though none could say what exactly. In news reports, authorities blamed an overloaded PA for sonic disorientation. Elias, Ingrid and Marco faced interrogation but were released. There were no laws yet about exercising mimetic war gods via defective subwoofers. Back at Ingrid's apartment, they shared silent tea until exhaustion claimed them. Days later, Elias revisited Decryptor. The sub-install was complete, the room immaculate, yet something felt quieter, as though a massive beast had vacated the city's underbelly. He ran pink noise, calibrating levels. Ears still healing? No hidden runes surfaced. Only music 12 equal tones, infinite permutations, free of old orders. He left the club at dawn, crossing Warschauer Brücke. Early sunlight caught the TV tower, turning its globe rose gold. Berlin breathed, imperfect and unpossessed. Elias smiled at the ordinary clang of a tram. The kind of everyday rhythm no empire could claim, no rune could command,